months and 3 weeks pregnant, a book past its due date, or long-needed visits between friends, this is Overdue with the Slut and the Prude.
A monthly feminist podcast that highlights the beauty of libraries while discussing everything from politics to pop culture and whatever nonsense pops into our head.
That was great.
Thank you.
That was perfect for our first little introduction. I guess to start, I'm Emma.
I'm Nora.
And we met in a library, right? Which is why we wanted to do this podcast here in a library. Really, this podcast is a little overdue itself. When did we start talking about this?
I want to say at least a year ago, probably longer.
Yeah, and we probably, while we were working together, like we probably did say, like, this would be a great podcast.
Yeah.
And that was like, what, 3 years ago?
3 years ago, yeah.
Oh, yikes. I don't even want to think about what 3
So this
years.
is long overdue.
Long overdue. Way more than a woman who's over 9 months pregnant. Like, this is like, oof. I guess what's happening in the world of Nora lately?
Oh my
Points
god.
of interest or...
So, I was talking to the professor that I volunteer for in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the middle of doing grad stuff, as you know, applying for grad. And I honestly thought like the easiest part of the whole application would probably just doing like the proposals for funding.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, well, I've already done lots of those, probably very simple. And it's like, it's not. No. Like, why can't anything about this process be simple? Like, nothing is easy about
What's like the hardest part of fund? Like, I know like the language around fundraising proposals is really like very different than like if you're writing an essay or something.
Yeah.
But is that what's difficult, or is just like no one's accepting?
It's just like writing it a certain way, because I was looking at it and they're like, we want it to be like in lay people's terms, nothing fancy, nothing like this. So like trying to figure out how they want it set up.
Especially if it's for labs, like
Yeah.
it's kind of,
Yeah.
the jargon is necessary.
And then sending it to the right funding, because like, so I'm looking at the Tri-Council grant or funding for Ontario, whatever, and there's like different sections. Fortunately, it's like if you apply to the wrong section, they'll actually just scoot it over to the right section.
Oh, okay.
But writing it and then writing it for the due dates, and then
Right.
having it like something that's of interest, it's like, oh god.
But yeah, because like you're not going to get any funding if it's not something that the funding council,
Right.
whoever is, it likes. That's kind of like, I feel like that's super difficult. But no wonder you're saying, no wonder it's hard. Like, because you don't know what they want.
Right. And I was talking to the professor and she's like, it's going to be hard because you're not a master's student, and this is usually for master's students, and it's like, unless you have a professor who's actually already willing to help you with it, it's going to be difficult.
Like, because there's no name associated with it?
Yeah. So.
What? That seems so, like,
It's just.
backwards.
Yeah. I mean,
Because aren't you trying to get funding to go into your master's?
Yeah, to help me pay for it. And
But you have to be a master's student before.
it sounds like it.
But what way does that make any sense? Because also some fundings don't let you, like they say what the money can go towards, right? Like some funding is like, oh, you can pay your staff or like assistants, but you can't pay yourself.
Yeah.
Or like this can go towards equipment, but not paying people. So like what?
Yeah, I don't know. Funding is just stupid. It's not.
Yeah, in my classes when I was still going to Fleming, I had to take a class on how to write funding proposals, but not for a master's, but for companies who might hire me, because a lot of non-for-profits in the environmental field are very like, you do everything. You don't just get hired for one thing. You do everything for that company. You might one day be out in the field. You might one day be in the office, like organizing files. And for a lot of these companies, you need to do the funding proposals for it. And I feel like they're very different. Like grant funding for like an organization versus for a master's. But also, like, it's not easy to do.
No.
And like, they're so picky.
Yeah.
Like that class, like, it was so easy to fail it because they were just like, you wouldn't get accepted. It's like, oh, Okay, that's fine. Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, she was telling me that she actually helped one of her grad students with it before she was actually accepted. And she's like, so if you have that rapport with the supervisor that you have, it could be easier. But I don't have that rapport. I literally have like nothing.
And like you're hoping that this will help you get the funding so that you can find perhaps a professor.
It looks better if you've actually put on your application that you've applied for funding, whether or not you've actually gotten it yet. They like it if you actually have something. So I guess it shows that like you're committed to it, and you're not just kind of like, hey, here I am.
I love that education is very much like, are you willing to put yourself on the line financially and emotionally for no payoff? Perfect, we'll take you. That's the one thing I don't think I really love about the education section, especially higher education. Yeah, it's like they expect like you to basically just like upend your life, regardless of whether it's financially, emotionally, psychologically, to do whatever it is that they need you to do. And I feel like that's so. I mean, it's so like it basically narrows down who could do it. Yeah. Because like if you don't have support, but like in your like field of work, like you can't really do, or it's easier to do what you want to do with a master's, right? Yeah. So like you're in like a rock and a hard place. Like upend your life or don't get your master's.
Right. Yeah, so like I was looking at jobs and it's like, well, we'd be happy to take you if you just have a BA, but you also need like 5 years experience. How do I get 5 years experience if nobody takes me with just my BA? So that doesn't help.
And like, then everything else. Count experience? Like, do they count volunteer work as experience?
I don't think so.
Then how are you supposed to get it?
Yeah, right. And so just like,
it's that whole like, it's that whole debate on like, wow, just go out there and get yourself the experience. Like my grandparents, they've learned a lot recently, but when I first moved in with them like 6 years ago, they were very much like, well, why aren't you just taking your resume and like going out there and like going up to the guy at the front desk and telling them you want experience, and like trying to explain to them that's not like, a lot of people won't even accept resumes like that anymore. And then to get experience for jobs, like you need to apply through them. Yeah. But a lot of those jobs, you're lucky if they'll accept you without any kind of experience. But some of them won't accept volunteer experience. Yeah. Like how it's like the millennial debate, right? Like, oh, these millennials don't work hard enough. It's like, no, I think it's the generation before us expects us to have 6 years experience before willing to pay us for anything. Right. But like, how do we balance that? Yeah. Like, we need to get experience. We need to be able to pay our bills, where we should already be out of the house by 19. Yep. Like, what are we doing living at home? And we're expected to save money. Like,
and pay off our loans.
And pay off our loans, that's right. You know, easy peasy stuff right there. Yeah. Just go to the front desk and get a job. It was very interesting, like, seeing the transition my grandparents took from like when I first moved in with them and them not really understanding why I wasn't going out to get a job. Right. Like, they'd be like, aren't you gonna go, like, because it was before I started school, so I was taking a year off to just figure out how life was. And so like I would say to them, oh yeah, I'm gonna apply for jobs on Tuesday. And then Tuesday would roll around and they'd be like, do you need a ride somewhere? Like, do you need some bus money? Like, like what can we do to help? And I was like, what do you mean? And they would say, well, you're here, you're at home, like, do you need directions, like, to where you're applying for? I'm like, oh no, I've spent the last, like, say I was up at 8, I'd spent the last 2 or 3 hours just, like, applying to jobs because of all the online portals, right? Yeah. And they would not understand. They were like, no, come on, get in the car, let's go. And I was like,
where am I going?
Where are we going? Like, unless you're taking me to, like, the careers, like, the Ontario work, right, like, office down the street, like, that's not going to help. And like I would literally, they would take me in the car and we'd go to like PetSmart and like the Tim Hortons down the road and the Popeyes and like all of that stuff, right? And I'd go in with a stack of resumes or with one resume and I would go to the guy at the front and I'd be like, can I speak to the manager? Like all this stuff. And they would always say, we can't take your resumes, apply online. And use like, or they'd give you a piece of paper that had like the store code on it, like whatever the store's location was. And I'd go back out to the car and like my grandparents would be like, are they not hiring? And I'm like, they won't take resumes. And they just didn't understand it. They physically couldn't understand it. And like, think about how many more people are living in each area now versus what, 30, 40 years ago when like my grandparents would have been applying for jobs like that. Like it's no wonder that like even Tim Hortons can't just accept every resume that comes to their door.
Right.
But they didn't get it for a very, very long time. And now they kind of do, and now they actually, if their family say anything about a younger like kid not applying for jobs or not just going out there, my grandparents are the first ones to speak up and be like, no, that's not how it is anymore. Which I think is so funny that like that shift has happened in their understanding.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have ever done that before. Like they were the ones who was like, "Come on, get in the car." that was a 6 months of hell. Just like going in, just like, "Can I give you my resume?" No. Okay. And I didn't get better when we were in school either. No. It's like everything's application based. You can't go into the admin to do anything. You have to do everything through email. You have to have a paper trail. It's very like, I don't even know a word for it. It's just very, like it's a digital age, I guess.
It's supposed to make it easier, but it really doesn't. It just gets so, it's just, you get lost in the maze of everything.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you want more information, click here, and then you click there, and you get back to the same page you were just on.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck is this supposed to help me?
Or like you go to like the contact us page.
Oh, God.
And it's like you write your little message, and it's like maybe 2 times out of 10 you'll actually get like someone's read it, said, I can't help you with this, I'm gonna send this to somebody else. But most of the times those were like, please give us 3 to 5 business days to get back to your request. And it's like,
or they answer you and they literally say the exact same thing that you just said. And you're like, that didn't help me at all.
No. Like that is not different or new information.
So I had to do the test, right? The GRE test.
Oh, yeah.
So I sent the ETS company an email because the location that I wanted to got filled up like super quick. And I was pissed because I actually wanted to do it in Etobicoke, but then I had to go all the way to Hamilton. So that's fun.
Well, you need a ride.
So I emailed them. I'm like, so I know this location is booked, but is there any way that I can get kind of like notified if somebody, decides to not to do the test? So let me know if there's a free spot. Is there any way that can happen? And they're like, so the reason that it's not showing up is because it's full. Yeah, I just said that. And it's one, first come, first serve. That's kind of it. I'm like, so is that a no to my question? Like, oh, that doesn't help me at all.
No, it doesn't tell you. It just, like, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to literally go in every day and like every few hours and check if it's open? Like, if
I guess. But like, they're, no. So that really didn't help me. I'm like, thanks, guy, that you really just told me the exact same thing that I told you.
I feel like they just, like, maybe they're not allowed to, like...
Yeah.
Like, maybe they have, like, an answer sheet or something, like, frequently asked questions, that if they find it, they just have to put that reply. Do you think people would, like, companies would do that?
Maybe.
It's not like a call center. Like, I know call centers, they have, like... they have to go through all the steps, right? Like, to make sure that bosses don't come down on their necks. But surely a contact us page does not have a list of, like, pre-described answers. Especially because, like, yours is probably not one that someone asks a ton.
Right. And, well, my friend, she was sending them another email because they got the locations all messed up. So when you looked on, like, the locations to look up, it said one location. Then they sent her a confirmation email, and it sent her a different address.
What?
And then she looked up online, so where like the first one told her.
Yeah.
And that was a completely different address. And she's like, where the fuck am I going? So she emailed them, and she's like, can you tell me where this location is? And I forget what they told her, but it was like something really stupid. She's like, that didn't help me at all. Oh, no, they're like, oh, you'll get a confirmation email with the address. And she's like, yeah, I got that, but it's telling me a different address from when I first signed up. Which one's the right location? And that was the answer they gave her. It was like,
you'll get a confirmation email.
And it'll tell you. And I'm like, it didn't tell me. It just confused me. So then she called like the location and they're like, oh yeah, this is the right address. Can you tell the testing center that this is the right location? She's like, that's not my job. I'm not contacting ETS to tell them that they got the location wrong. Like, you guys, people, you need to be on that.
Yeah, and it's not like they're going to listen to a quote-unquote customer about that kind of stuff anyway.
When she already emailed them to address the issue, like, something's wrong here, guys. And they're just like, you'll get a confirmation email. It's all good.
Like, I love this age, this digital age. Like, I do love the convenience of, like, always having the information I need at my hands. Like, if I'm out in the middle of, like, downtown Toronto and I'm like, I have no idea where I am, or, like, I need information, I can get it. I can be way out, like, east, and I can get the information. Like, as long as I have a signal, I can get information. But sometimes we rely on the wrong aspects of this digital age to get our information. Like, emails and lists and automated services are not always correct. Like, you always need at least one extra look through. Like, you need to go over it one more time. How many times were we working at Nelly and, like, the codes would be wrong on the books and they'd be like, this book is not here, and we'd go to the shelf and it's like, yeah, this book is here, but because it's automated, the number's different, so it doesn't count it as the right book. Like, it's like, I love this. I love having information, but people need to remember that it's fallible. Like, it's not perfect. It doesn't have all of the information. It doesn't have the consciousness to go like, this doesn't seem right. Yeah. This looks like this, but it's different. Yeah. It's just gonna go, these are two different things. Because that's what it's capable of. That's how it understands the world. Because it's not yet sentient.
I forgot to tell you the craziest thing that happened my last year at the Nelly.
Yeah.
So, you know how it always comes up, it's like, oh, that book's not here, and it is, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So one time, I was scanning a book, and the barcode that it gave me was actually attached to a different book entirely. Oh. So the barcode in the book that I had, when I scanned it onto the system, it came up with a different book. Oh. And the book that it sent me to didn't have a barcode in it.
What?
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
How did...
So they were actually the same book, right? Like two different versions. But they were just like, one was, I don't know, it was so weird. And then there was another time, I forget what happened. It said the book didn't exist. Or, oh, no. What happened was somebody emailed us and they're like, I want to renew a book or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they wanted to take out the book. No, they didn't have the book. And the book was on our shelf and it said that it was overdue.
What? Did they ever take it out?
No. Like, it was actually on the shelf. We had it the whole time and they were getting some kind of email saying that the book was overdue.
What?
And I'm like, it was the craziest thing the last year. Like, I didn't understand it.
How is that even possible? Like, I guess it's for reference, because like people may not know what this is talking about if they listen to this wonderful podcast. The Nelly is a library at York University where we met, and it's not self-serve because it's a very old library. So it would have been impossible for them to, like, I don't know, like, check out the book, decide they didn't want it, and then, like, somehow put it on the shelf. Like, one of us would have had to physically scan the book out for them and give it to them, or somehow, but they never checked it out.
Yeah, it said that she had checked it out, I think on a Friday, and it was like Monday or something that I came in to the email. And I actually sent out like a picture, like found her like her card on the system. So I sent out a picture to the girls in the group. Yeah. And I'm like, does anybody remember seeing this girl? Did she come in? And everybody's like, nope. The people working, like, I didn't even see this girl.
Did she even know where Nelly was? Because sometimes people don't even know where the Nelly library is.
No, I don't know. I can't remember that, but... Nobody saw her on the day that the system said she took it out. She's like, I did not take out this book.
And it's on our shelf.
It was on the shelf. So I'm like...
The right barcode?
Yeah. It was like the only one. It was the only copy. It was on the shelf. It had the right barcode. And it was saying, it's checked out to you, and you've never even seen this book.
What the
And you
heck?
weren't even in on the day that it said it was checked out. Nellie was not happy you guys left. I blame you guys.
Yeah, it must have been us because, like, that place is definitely haunted. The amount of times that, like, especially with the computer, things would go wrong. Like, a lot of the time, remember, we'd have to change the barcodes on books. So, like, either updated or, like, it was one of those really old books that people take out once every 7 years. So, like, we update the system and then we get the book, we have to put a new barcode in it and stuff. The amount of times that I would do that, and I would input all the book details from the old system, then take a barcode, put it on the book, scan it, and it would say that it didn't exist anymore. And then I have to redo it like a couple of times. The amount of times I had to do that, incredible, for like the weirdest books. And the system would just be like, no, you're not allowed to update this. No, it doesn't exist. It's like, no, you found it 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
On the old system. I'm trying to make it new. And they're like, no. The computer's just like, no. That library was haunted. No one can convince me otherwise. And then we all left, and you have it.
Yeah. Me and Sarah were there, but I don't, yeah. Nellie was not happy you guys had left.
No.
And I don't think she's happy Vicky left either, so I wonder what kind of fun stuff they're going through right now.
I know. I'm like, it's such an interesting library because I think it's one of the only ones on that campus that like still has the analog where we, like, the staff have to check out your book for you.
Yeah.
Right? Because Scott, you can check it out yourself. I'm pretty sure Frost, on the Frost campus, you can check it out yourself. I'm pretty sure, or on the Glendon campus. And was there any other libraries on? There was multiple.
Yeah, there was the Stacy Library.
Yeah, but that one you can check it out yourself.
I think so.
Because that was like the science library.
Yeah. Why are all our libraries named after people? Scott, Stacy, Nellie.
I don't know.
That's weird.
Because Nellie was the
mother of the woman who donated the
like
library.
All those books. Yeah, so that makes sense, I guess. But it's not like she was I guess she was a feminist given all the books that we had. Like, they were all feminist literature. But I wonder why Scott and Stacy.
Yeah, who are those people?
Why were they so important that they got a whole library named after us?
Is Stacy a man or a woman?
I believe he's a man.
He was a man.
Let's look at it.
I feel like there was another library. I feel like I'm missing one. Didn't we have 4 on campus? On the main campus?
I think so. Stacy.
Scott, Stacy, Nellie.
Because there's Frost, but that was Glendon.
Yeah.
I want more information, please. Oh, here we go. There's so many Osgood.
Oh, right.
Which was the law. But apparently there's more. So apparently, the moving images and sound library, that counted.
Oh, okay.
That was also
That was also in Scott.
Yeah, that was in Scott. And the map library was in Scott.
Yeah.
Let's see. Apparently Stacy doesn't exist.
It's okay, it's just a science library, no one
Yeah.
really cares.
You know, it doesn't have information about why it's named that.
Huh.
The Stacy Science and Engineering Library. I don't know, but Nellie was like, no one ever knew where it was. Do you remember the phone calls we used to get where, like, someone would call and would be like, yeah, I'm looking for this book. It says you have it. How do I get to your place? Do you remember?
Yeah. And we were so far off from the main campus, trying to explain to people was like, we were right beside the res.
Yeah, we were like in the same building that the not Stong Camulet.
No, it was that was my building.
Right.
That was
on the other side.
That was that was on Campus Walk.
Founders.
Yes.
And the thing with that is that Founders wasn't even a normal residence. No. It was for international or exchange students, because students didn't stay in that residence for the whole like they didn't even have a frosh. Like, they were so small and so like different. So like even trying to say, do you know where the frosh or the oh my god,
Founders
where the Founders residence is, people will be like, what's that?
Yeah. The funniest was when they came in, they were like, they looked like they had just discovered like this whole new world. They looked like deer in headlights. They're like, I didn't even know this was here.
Especially because like you would walk into the library and our desk,
yeah,
it was like there by the door. Like we could see everyone who came in and came out. And they'd be like, the amount of time people came in looking for a class, and they'd be like, is this not like whatever the room next door?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's next door. And then walk and then come back and they'd be like, I can't find it. Because remember it was like tucked like in a corner. The door was like adjacent to ours, but like faced the opposite direction. And so like people would come in and be like, I don't know where this class is. And I'm like, it's right next door. And they'd be like, I tried to find it. And I'd literally like go out, point, and they'd be like, oh. But yeah, that was like, it was such a weird like if it wasn't for the fact that you're here and we're talking about this, I would have thought it was a dream. Because like it was, no one knew where it was, no one knew how to find it, and when people found it, they always came back. Like it was like once they discovered it, they're like, this is not my library. To be fair though, it was always quiet.
Oh yeah.
The computer sucked.
Oh yeah. Connection was terrible. Printing was shit.
Well, and copying, you had to copy each page individually, and you couldn't copy double-sided.
Yeah, and it was only black and white. It was so old school.
And we couldn't print in color either, could we?
No.
No, that's right. And the printer always ruined. We always had to like open it up and slam it shut. In the middle of
or the jiggling of the printer.
Yeah.
The printer's not working. Okay, give me a sec. You just pull out the cartridge and you just shake it. And the students are like, what are you doing? We're too cheap to buy another cartridge. There's some in there. We just gotta shake it out.
Oh yeah, the faces people would pull when they'd be like, the printer's not printing. Like, we know how to fix this. The very few things we knew how to fix. The printer, the computer usually just needed like a nudge.
Yeah.
And like we genuinely knew how to get books signed out. We knew that.
Yeah.
We did. Honestly, that was the best 3 years of my life.
That was the best job I've ever had.
Honestly, I would, if I could work in a library again, I would.
Yeah.
But you know you need library studies?
Yep. Yeah, I know. I tried looking into libraries when I first got it with graduated, and I'm like, I can do that. I did it for 3 years.
Yeah, you know.
And then I was like, nope, you need like a master's in library studies. I'm like, okay.
It's like, what? I don't understand.
Everything needs a master's now. Everything. You need like a master's for like dog scooping now.
I swear, like people don't want to give you their dog unless you have like veterinary medicine. It's like, well, if I have veterinary medicine, I'm not going to walk your dog for you for $20.
Yeah, $20 an hour? No, thanks.
No, like I don't get it. It's been very interesting because I have the unique, I guess, opportunity that I got my degree and my college diploma in like 5 years, right? And what I've seen is my friends who just did the college diploma and my friends who just did the university degree are both having individually difficult times getting jobs right now. Because a lot of, it's not even like on the job, like posting, it says you need both or you need something. But like I'm getting interviews to things that they're not even hearing back for.
Ooh.
And it's very interesting to see because I'm not getting the jobs, obviously. Like, I'm still in a panic about trying to find a job for August. It is August, September.
Why September?
Because my contract's over at the end of August.
Oh, right.
And like they're not even hearing back.
Oh.
And it's very interesting because it's like university degrees are no longer, like your bachelor's is no longer important. It's just like, oh, you did it? That's great.
Good for you. Here's a star.
Oh, here's a gold star. Participation award. But it's like
very expensive participation award that you have to pay for.
Oh yeah. Oh, you want
with your life savings.
Oh yeah. You want a job after this? Oh,
that's
sweetie,
cute.
That's cute. And then there's the whole like, okay, well you can go do your master's, but that's not cheap. Is a master's 2 years? 2 years. So another 2 years on top of that, and then you risk getting pushed out of the youth Youth Jobs Ontario or something like that, which allows youth 18 to 25. Like it's like the government will fund companies to hire that age group. But it's like, okay, if you get your undergrad and it takes you 4 years, that makes you 22. and then you want to do your master's 2 extra years, that's 24. You're risking only having 1 year to get those youth jobs. And then a lot of the positions, like a lot of those companies won't hire anyone older. Because they're getting funding, so why would they hire like anyone older than that? Because they don't have to get funding from the government. And it like pushes a whole age group out. And given that people are now waiting a longer time to go to school, like they're saving up and stuff.
And they're also like changing mid-sections, so they're like older when they get out now.
Or like they take, what do they call it in Canada, a victory lap? Or they take like a victory lap and stuff like that, so they're older when they come out. It's like, and then if you only have a degree, they don't even want to look at you. Never mind if you're in the right age group. It's a very like daunting task, like once you graduate. Like I didn't realize that until now, because obviously I only just graduated. So for me, it's just like, oh, it's fine, everything's fine, and then it's not fine. Everything's not. You know that meme of the dog with the fire all around it, and the dog is just there like, this is fine. This is fine. That's me right now. It's just like.
I feel like that's been me my whole life.
Oh, I know. It's like I started university, and that's when it was. Like, this is fine. It's like I could smell the smoke. This is fine. But it's really daunting, especially with like. So we discussed this kind of thing in school because of the environment. How we change politicians every 4 years, right? Like the prime minister potentially gets switched over every 4 years. How it really disrupts a lot of policy making, and especially a lot of jobs, opportunities, and the environment, because you'll write in like policies for funding for people aged 18 to 25, or a lot of money that is getting sent towards, I don't know, education, the environment, healthcare, those kind of things. And then 4 years later, they can just upend all that funding with the next politician that comes in. And I feel like right now, in terms of job prospects and education prospects, we're really feeling that like discomfort. I think is the best way to put it. Because like all the funding's being cut for all sorts of things, including libraries, which is how people find jobs a lot of the time. But also for certain sectors, like I'm sure your sector is not going to find a lot of funding.
My sector was cut long ago. Which is probably why it's so hard to get into a clinical psychology program. Because like, why are you pushing out all these clinical psychologists and therapists when there's literally nothing for them to do? Like nobody's going to give you. There's no insurance to cover it. So all the people who actually need it can actually afford it. And you're making like peanuts if you go into an organization that actually offers free. So it's like there's a need for you, but there's no market for you. So
I wonder. Do you think that? How do you think socially, a community would change if your sector of work was funded by OHIP, for instance?
I definitely think that there would be, I don't want to say elimination of homelessness and drug abuse, but definitely that would be improved.
Because drugs aren't gateways, trauma is.
And there's like, for people who are suffering with addictions, I mean, they definitely have two issues. One, the initial cause of the addiction, and then of course the addiction itself. And so solving the addiction is not going to fix anything if you haven't actually dealt with the underlying issue. So you need both to actually be addressed. And so like the on-site stuff, it's good because it actually does help with the addiction somewhat.
Of course.
But if you're just saying, you know, drugs are bad, don't do it, you know, here's some pamphlets to help you get off it, but you're not dealing with the underlying issues as to why they actually started in the first place, then you're kind of back to where you started. Or you're just getting a new addiction. You know, you got off heroin, but now you're shoplifting, now you're prostituting, now you're doing whatever.
Now you're retail therapy. It's an addiction in and of itself, even if it's not considered as serious or anything that damages you isn't not a good addiction. I agree, and I also agree that if and I get that it would be expensive. It'd be expensive for OHIP to cover that thing. That's why they don't cover dental. That's why they don't cover eye care after your 21, something like that. Like, I get it's expensive, but I also feel like if you want to treat the underlying costs that a community holds because of homelessness, because of addiction, because of mental health services, treating the underlying, like, so those are very expensive for like a city to pay for.
Yeah.
But if you just paid for therapists to be included in everyone's health care, you wouldn't have to spend so much money on crisis services, for instance, like ambulances being called out to people in crisis, right? Yeah. Like, that's an expensive cost because it could end up being that someone with a heart attack dies or whatever, right? Not that those are still very important people, but like, if people knew that they could go to a mental health emergency room instead, like a mental health ER, like they wouldn't need to call the ambulance. They could go to this therapist, A&E, and just like go there, and then the services are split, and the cost is a lot less. Yeah. Homelessness is a huge cost on the city, but if we could treat the reason why people are homeless, or maybe even understand what needs to change, because a lot of the time people aren't, like, a lot of time people may be homeless from choice. They might decide they don't want to be, like, they don't want to spend, or they don't want to, like, be a part of the system or something like that. But that's important to understand for a functional society, is what is making someone decide they'd rather live on the streets than live what would be typical lifestyle, right? Especially when you consider that a lot of the time homeless people don't have a lot of options. Like, they either go to the Salvation Army, which we have learned recently is not a very safe place for them to go. Right. Because did you hear basically what happens? There's been a lot of stories coming out lately. If someone who's homeless goes to a Salvation Army, especially if they're LGBT, let's be fair, and for some reason they're kicked out. Yeah. Or they're only can stay for, like, I don't know, whatever it is, a couple days or a week, and they get told they have to leave unless they do X, Y, or Z, and they choose to leave, but they don't get to take all their stuff with them right away. That's what gets sold in the Salvation Army thrift stores.
Really?
Some of it's obviously donated. Right. Like, if people are like my grandparents, when they clean out their house, they donate it to the Salvation Army. But apparently anything left behind by people from the shelters can also get sold.
Oh my god. Well, why can't they take them with them though?
Well, like, let's say they're getting kicked out, like, in the middle of the night, and they really can't physically carry their stuff, maybe, or it's extra clothes, or whatever it is, right?
Wow.
Yeah, but I've heard there's a lot of stories like that coming out right now. So, like, I mean, if I was homeless, my choice would be to stay on the streets rather than end up somewhere like that. Or if you're LGBT, they're not going to let you stay with your partner, right? Because it's So you have those options, like Salvation Army. You have the options of, like, maybe city shelters, but I don't know how safe those are all the time, because you hear stories that they're not very safe, or that, and, like, besides that, like, that is not a conducive environment for helping you understand your issues and, like, getting better. Like, everyone in this room with bunk beds and, like, no privacy, and so I feel like if there was, like, a mental health A&E, just, like, attached to a hospital, like, why not? Then if there's an underlying issue other than, like, a mental health crisis, the hospital's right there. You just, like, put them there. I don't know, it's crazy. Yeah.
But I feel like, because you were talking about how much it would cost us, but I also feel like when you look at all the money that we lose in people just suffering with burnout and people not coming into work because of, there's one of their episodes or whatever, we lose so much money there that putting that effort into mental health could actually balance the scale. Workers are not going to be burning out, and workers are not going to be taking time or sick days if they actually have places where they can actually speak about this before it gets to the point where it's like, I can't.
I agree. Like, there's, like, I suffered really bad burnout 2 weeks ago. Now, I mean, I don't have any money to be paying for a therapist either. I have gone in the past in school, and so I use the lessons from there to help me. But burnout is still kind of inevitable if you don't have access to care. And so, like, I can imagine that. Like, I had to take, like, I was a much less effective worker for that week that I was burnt out before I had, like, a full weekend off. And, like, we would save so much money just in that. But that also calls to question the whole, like, companies not paying a living wage for their employees, or having double the employees all on part-time work because they don't want to pay benefits to them, or like, because the government obviously has, like, if you have a full-time worker who's worked this many times, you have to provide, I don't know what it is, but companies don't want to do that, so they hire just enough people to cover the hours, but part-time workers. That shouldn't be allowed either. Because, like, that's not going to help the whole mental health situation, even if we had therapists on hand for everybody.
It's a screwy world.
It is, and it's, I think people... Now, I'm not saying that politicians... Here we go.
Yes, let's not offend the politicians.
I'm not saying that it's all the politicians' fault.
No.
Because their job is hard. Now, of course, they've chosen to be a politician, so I have to expect that it's not an easy job.
Right.
But I do feel like... I lost my train of thought. I had something really interesting to say. I don't remember what it was now. What were we saying? Oh my god.
It's really gone.
It's really gone.
Something about mental health, something about policies.
Yeah, I think all I was going to say was that, like, politicians need to step up in terms of, like, there are some things that shouldn't be an argument anymore. Like, for instance, abortion. We shouldn't be arguing about that anymore. Those are rules that have been, or laws that have been in place for many, many years now. That should no longer be a point. Like, that should not be what people are voting on anymore.
Yeah. That even shouldn't be a conversation. Why are we talking about that again? Why?
Exactly. Like, why? Like, it's been in law for at least 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's been in law for at least 20 years, why is it being brought back up? To divide the voting parties. To divide people, to be very decisive, to, like, to try to separate generations, essentially, is what it's trying to do. Because if you separate generations, you cause uproar, other policies aren't thought about. Right, if everyone is arguing about abortion, no one's thinking about the environment, mental health, structure, climate change. Like, no one's thinking about those because they're arguing about one point.
Yeah.
That's why they do it, but they shouldn't. I'm very worried about the world in general.
Yeah. I think we all should be.
I think we all should be, but there's a lot of people who... I mean, there's a lot to that, though. Like, someone who's in financial or mental instability doesn't have the energy or the money to be worrying about the world.
Right.
They need to make sure they have food on the table, they have a roof over their head, and they have a job. And, like, if you don't have... It's like the hierarchy of needs, right? Like, if you have food, shelter... And what was the other one? Like
safety.
Food, shelter, safety, and, like, I think community. Then you can access higher thoughts, like improving your situation and arts and I mean, arts you could argue is part of community, but like expressing yourself, right? Like, those things are later. But right now we're keeping everybody at this. I say. Society is keeping people at the man. The man is keeping everyone at the place where they don't have shelter, safety, food. So, like, how can we expect anyone to, like, bring their reusable cup everywhere and stuff like that when they can barely afford to even have luxuries? Never mind luxuries that cost a lot of money.
I don't know why, but that made me think of Woodstock when I said the man.
Well, isn't it like the...
It's the 50th anniversary.
And they're trying to find the bus, right? The bus.
The bus. Would you have gone to Woodstock if you had been?
I'm not really into music. I like music.
Yeah.
But I'm not into festivals.
Yeah.
But like, I like to think that I would have been that person, like in a very different era, who was like.
Would you have been a hippie in the 60s? Do you think?
Probably. I don't know though. Like, I'm shy. Like, I'm super like awkward and just like. Maybe I would have been a closet hippie. People think I'm a hippie now.
Yeah.
And is there really much difference? Would you have gone?
Maybe. I feel like I probably would have said I want to go, and probably thought I definitely want to go like the whole day. And then the actual time to actually go, I probably wouldn't have, just because I'm so lazy.
Okay.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
So I think of something, I'm like, that sounds so cool, I want to do that. And then all the way up till the day, I'm like, I'm going to do this. This is so cool. I'm going to do it. And the day comes, I'm like, oh crap, I missed it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's me. Mostly it's my anxiety just being like, yeah, I'll do it. And then the day comes and someone's like, hey, let's go. And I'm like, oh, I'm sick. I can't do it. I'm tired. Or like, it's just like my anxiety gets the better of me. My social side is like, don't go out, don't do it, don't go. And then I just like, no, I'm sick. I am tired. Sorry, something came up at home. So maybe that would have been me. Maybe I would have been like the whole like painting the signs and like making an outfit with my friends, and then they turn up at my house in a bus, and I would have been like, no. I don't know. I feel like it would have been very interesting.
I think so too.
Because what's most interesting about it is that it wasn't, no one expected it to turn out the way it did.
Yeah. Well, like, it was free.
First of all.
Yeah. So I think they probably should have expected, like, anything free, people woke up.
Yeah, but no one expected it to become history.
Right.
Right? Like, 'cause it was just a gathering, right? Like, wasn't it anti-war? What was Woodstock? I don't even know. That's ignorance.
It's one of those things where it's like you know about it, but you don't know about it. It's just one of those things that have always kind of been there, like Woodstock and hippies.
Okay, yeah. So Woodstock was a music festival held August 15th to 18th, 1969, which attracted the audience of more than 400,000, billed as an Aquarian exposition, 3 days of peace and music.
Okay.
Which I guess doesn't explain anything. Oh, it's Woodstock is committed to living by its principles. Oh, okay. So it is like a hippie movement in terms of. Oh no. They're, no. The website is trying to like take me other places. Okay, so it's like the belief in like human rights, like access to all, like, how do they say it? To spark beauty and
It sounds fun.
Yeah, so I feel like that would have been definitely my vibe. Like, if I was anything like I am now, back in the like 70s, I feel like that would have been right up my alley. Like, look at me, environmental justice and ecofeminism and stuff. Like, I feel like that would have been the place I would have gone, but my social anxiety probably would have just taken over, and I would have been like, no, I can't go now. I've got to look after my dog.
Whose dog is that, by the way?
With the little dog in the picture?
Yeah.
So that is a neighbor's dog who we were puppy sitting yesterday. Like, we just needed to take her out every couple of hours. The owners weren't home, so they're still crate training her. But, like, of course, she still needs to be taken out every 2 hours, so we're just doing it last night. And we took her on way too long of a walk, and I had to carry her home. Because she couldn't. She was trying to run after the big dogs, because she's only 4 months old.
Aww.
And so we have 2 big dogs, right? And she's trying to catch up with them, and she kept falling over and just, like, laying down. And so I just had to pick her up. But she apparently took offense to my glasses.
Oh.
Because I pick her up and, like, don't ask me how she did it, because I didn't end up with scratches or anything. My glasses would be off my face. Like, I'd pick her up, and then glasses were gone. And I was like, what? She did not like my glasses for some reason or another. But she's so sweet.
She is the cutest.
So sweet. Like, I can't handle how cute she is.
What's her name?
Georgia.
Aww.
She is a duck-tolling retriever. I think the full name's like Nova Scotian duck-tolling retriever. But she is so cute. Like, she has golden eyes and like little sharp teeth. Because she's still got her puppy teeth, so little sharp teeth. Like, I barely pet her and she already like cut my finger. Like,
wow.
The big dogs told her where she stands in the pecking order. She tried to bite their butts a couple times. Well, because she's only like this tall,
Yeah.
right? Like she's only like maybe 1.5 foot tall. So like the big dog, she barely comes up to their knees. And so she wanted to play, so what's closest to her? Their butts. So she would just like try to bite them, and of course they were like, no, that's not happening. Sit down. She's so cute though. I'm in love with her.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for the fact that she is a neighbor's dog and they would definitely know I took her, I probably would have.
Yeah.
But I have 2 big dogs. I'll just have to live with that, I suppose.
You have 2 big dogs? Your grandparents or you or Kyle?
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle has 2 big dogs.
Well, Kyle's dad.
Oh, Kyle.
But like, they're my dogs now.
Yeah, of course.
They're Maremmas, so they're Italian sheepdogs. Have you seen a Great Pyrenees before?
Probably, but...
It's like the big white dogs.
Oh, yes.
So they're a cousin of the Great Pyrenees.
Oh, okay.
So they're big dogs. I don't know what that is. It's spelled wrong, and apparently it's a building.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so the owner of Dogtails, where I got Shakira, she has something that looks like that. She's massive.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't think she's a dog. I don't know what she is.
She's a horse?
Yeah, I think she's a miniature horse, because that thing is huge.
Yeah, they do get big. Ours are mixed breeds, because we rescued them, so they were rescued. I've just adopted them as my dogs now.
Oh, they're yours. That's fine.
They might as well be mine. But the one is a Maremma golden mix. So he looks a lot like a golden retriever, but he has the temperament of a Maremma. They're like herding dogs. They're meant to basically protect sheep from wolves. So like if a coyote's around, we're safe. The coyote's not safe.
Oh, poor
because
thing.
the dogs are like protective, right? And then the new one we just got, she's only 2, maybe 2.5 soon. She's a Maremma Great Pyrenees mix.
Ooh.
So she has a very interesting temperament because she has the curiosity of a Great Pyrenees, but like the stoicism of a Maremma. And it's a very interesting mix because she'll like be super playful 1 minute, and then she hears a weird sound. She does like the head tilt. And like she's like no emotion, like head tilt. Head tilt. I think we're safe. And then play again. She's so funny. But she had to have knee surgery recently because she blew her ACL in her knee, which is the tendon, the main tendon.
Yeah.
And so she had to have major like leg surgery, and we all thought like she would never like be the same, because like when a dog goes through an injury like that, they're very like they can change, like their personality can change. But no, she's fine. She's all back to her normal self. Kept trying to jump in and out of the truck.
Oh gosh.
Even though she's not supposed to jump in and out of the truck yet.
Yeah.
So I love them. Honestly, dogs, we don't deserve dogs.
We really don't.
We don't.
Do you watch For the Love of Dogs?
No, what is that?
So it's Paul O'Grady's The Love of Dogs. It's it's actually from the UK.
Really?
It's right up your alley, yeah. So I don't know who Paul O'Grady is. He must be some kind of famous UK personality, whatever. But he just goes into Battersea dog and cat home. Yeah. So he just goes in there and he kind of looks with the dogs and hangs out with them. And I think it's kind of like what is it? Dogtails Rescue. Have you seen that? Yeah. Just like a British version of that.
And why haven't I?
Yeah, it's on Channel 6, CBC at 4. That's probably why, because you're not home.
That's true, I'm not home.
Yeah, so he just goes into like the kennels and he just like, this is Molly, this is blah blah blah.
That is so cute.
Yeah, and he just gets them, he tries to just get them rehomed and everything. But like, some of those stories are so heartbreaking. And it just be like, this is Molly, a golden retriever who was left at the side of the road for no apparent reason. Or this like little dog that was like stray, or this dog that's probably used for like dog baiting, or some of them are just so heartbreaking, and just like, how do you do that to a dog?
I watch or I guess I should say my future father-in-law watches Pit Bulls and Parolees, which is a very interesting show in and of itself, because it's like 2 very distrusted members of society, Pit Bulls and Parolees. And like some of the stories, like some of the like ways that they get their dogs, like their pit bulls, like I cry every episode. Like there's not an episode that I come out of there with a dry eye. Like I'm just like, the puppy, like that poor puppy. I know. So I'm like terrible. Like I can't watch like pet shows because I just cry. It could be a happy story and I cry. It could be a neutral story and like, this is a dog. Look at the dog. What a cute dog. And I'm just like, mess. Like, I can't handle it. Dogs are too much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have that zoo one day. Like, I'm gonna be that person with all the dogs.
You're gonna be the next Danielle.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was a meme. It was hilarious because where did she go? I think she was in Israel and she went to a dog shelter and she was going to go adopt a dog. And then she couldn't leave any of the dogs, so she literally like bought the shelter.
What?
And that's how she started Dogtails. Yeah, she just brought them all over. Like, I can't leave any of you guys, so I'll just create a shelter.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I follow them on Instagram.
Me too.
Because, like, when I move into my own place, because, like, I live with my family right now, when I move into my own place, I'm going to get a dog. Like, that is my graduation present to myself. And it might be a year down the line. Yeah. That's okay. I can wait. But, like, I follow a bunch of different shelters because when I have the one, I will know. Like, when I see it, I will know. And I love watching Dogtails. I just love their photos. Like, they're so, like, cute. And they, like, put extra effort into, like, making all the dogs look so happy. And, like, not just shelter pictures, you know? Like, because shelter pictures always make the dogs look sad.
Yeah. Well, they probably are.
I mean, yeah. No, shelters are not a good place for dogs to be.
Not.
Like, they're not. That's why a lot of non-for-profits now are shelterless dog shelters.
Yeah.
So foster-based. Because then the dogs get in a home, you really actually see their personality.
Right.
But it's much harder, of course, to take dogs in foster-based animal shelters.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I honestly, like, I can't wait to adopt a dog. I know I have dogs and, like, it's the best thing ever and I'm very happy, but it's still, like, they're not mine. Like, I don't get to train them or like, whatever. Like, they have their master. But we don't deserve dogs.
We don't deserve dogs. It's so awful, the things that people do.
Yeah. And you're always going to get those people who are terrible. Like, there's, like, unfortunately, there's no such thing as a utopia.
Yeah.
Like, we're never going to reach that point because people just, like, their psychology, we just are always going to have those bad people. We're always going to have good people, like, people who are so good that they make up for it all. But, like, some of the things that people do to each other and to animals is terrible.
You know what we need to do? As much as I love them and I think they're adorable, we really need to stop breeding pugs.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Those poor things. Like, every time I watch a dog show, it's always like the poor pug can't breathe. And it's like, well, yeah, you don't have a fucking nose.
Yeah, and, like, the thing is that pugs didn't used to look like that.
No.
Pugs, they had a short nose. Like, they always had a shorter nose. That was why they were called pugs.
Yeah.
But because we keep inbreeding them to shorten the nose, it's becoming an issue. Like, so many pugs will die before they're, like, 2 years old of, like, encephalitis, which is a brain, like, disorder, like a disease, basically. Because their nasal passage is so short, it squishes their brain. And it's like they're born suffocating already. Yeah. That's not a life for them. No, and, like, bulldogs and pugs both almost can't give birth on their own anymore. Because, like, pugs have been bred with big heads and tiny hips. Yeah. And so pug mothers almost can't give birth anymore because, like, the dimorphism between, like, the sizes. And then bulldogs are bred with such wide shoulders and such narrow hips that the babies get stuck, and then both mother and all the puppies die. Oh my god! If you don't get it to a hospital fast enough, Oh wow! I did not know that. Yeah, because bulldogs, like, they have that really stocky, like, they look like muscle builders in the front, you know? But then they have the tiny little hips. Oh, yeah. Well, of course, mothers also then have tiny little hips, but puppies with giant shoulders. So, like, they have to have, like, what's essentially the equivalent of cesarean, like, to have their puppies. And if you don't get them in time, like, it can kill mother and puppies. That's so sad. It's like we really, really try to play God a little too much. Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's... Is there something I was going to say? I don't know. Was there something you were going to say? I don't know. I hate when that happens. Yeah. We were talking about dogs. We were talking about dogs. I could talk about dogs forever. I love dogs. I know. What's really funny is that I love big dogs, right? Now, I'm not a tall person. I'm a strong person. But, like, I'm not very tall, as I'm sure you know. And so I love the dogs that are the same size as I am. And my family are terrified for me. Like the family, so I have family, my family's kind of split into two parts. The people who have dogs and the people who don't have dogs.
Yeah.
The people who don't have dogs are terrified for me when I show them pictures of dogs that I potentially want to adopt. And they're like, but it's big. And I'm like, well, it's actually a little on the small side for what I usually prefer. And they freak out because they're like, it'll eat you. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, but it's literally bigger than you are. Like, how? You can't walk that. And I'm like, it's fine. Because my aunt just got a Great Dane.
Ooh.
And like, it's like pretty big. It's a small Great Dane, but Great Danes are big, right? And I was telling her how that's the perfect size dog. Like, that's the perfect size dog. I like a heavy dog, like a Newfoundland Lab or Saint Bernard.
Oh gosh, you
I
like the big.
I like the big dogs. But the Great Danes is the right size. And I was saying, oh, I'd love to like play with it. It's the perfect size dog. Like, I would adopt one like that. And my aunt was like, you can't do that. You can't. It's so big. You're not a big person. You're little. Like, you can't do that. I'm like, it's the perfect size. I also think it's funny because I used to have two big dogs when I lived in Wales. And I would walk them both at the same time. And they're not little dogs. Like, they were at least 50, 55 pounds plus, right? My one dog was probably closer to 100 pounds. And so I would walk them together and people would look and like cross the street. And they'd like look at me and watch me because I'd be like, sit, and they'd both sit. Like, they were very well behaved. But like, people don't know that, and they just see a little person with two big dogs walking, and people would always cross the street in front of me. Very rarely would someone like just walk opposite ways from me. And usually it was someone with a child who wanted to see my dog and like pet the dogs. Children have no fear.
They don't. That's problematic.
It's problematic, but also like they have to learn. But
it's usually at the expense of the dog.
Yeah, it usually is at the expense of the dog.
And that's not fair. Like, it's not my fault your kid's a dumbass. Don't kill my dog because you couldn't teach your kid, self-control.
Especially around therapy, like service animals.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of times a service animal like gets yanked or pulled or like someone who the partner of the service animal like is in distress and the dog is trying to help them. Yeah. And like a kid is yanking on their tail or like It's like, it's so stupid because like usually they're the people who don't have pets. Because if you have a pet, you teach your kids like, if the cat is hissing, don't pet the cat. See this? This is a mouth. Don't put your hand in it. Like, just wave at the dog across the street. Yeah. Right. Especially if like a person's like kind of like cross or looks like they're trying to like wait on the side until you pass them. Like that is a hint that that dog or a pet or whatever isn't in the mood for being pet, right? But like people who don't have pets don't get it. No. And they just think that, well, it's just a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had, because like Shakira's a weird girl. So there are some people she is like no problem with. She would come up to me and be like, hey, how's it going? And friends? Okay, we'll be friends.
Is she little?
No, she's a medium-sized dog.
Okay, yeah.
And then there are other people, she'll just look at and be like, nope, not having that. Don't know you, go away. And there's like no discrimination. Like, so she'll see a little old lady, terrified. She'll see a man in a hoodie, smoking, all sketchy looking. She'll be like, hey, how's it going? How are you? And you're like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but whatever. So sometimes with kids, like she likes what I call the little people. So she loves my nieces and nephews. She's awesome with them. But random kids on the street, it'll be like, no, don't know you. You're not my little people. Go away.
Interesting.
And so I was walking in the park and I saw some kids and they're like, oh, it's a dog. I want to pet the dog. I want to pet the dog. And I saw her and she was like freaking out. Like they weren't close or anything, but I could just tell I'm like, no, she's not having it. So when I'm like, no, you can't. Sorry. She's scared. She's like, I'm not scary. I'm not scared. I want to pet the dog. I'm like, yeah, I don't care if you're not scared. She's not comfortable. She's not having it. So you got to go away.
Yeah, there's something about pregnant ladies and people's dogs that seems to automatically cancel out any kind of consent that you have.
Yeah, boundaries go out the window.
Like, no boundaries. Like, if you're a pregnant lady
whose
bump is quite, like, is pronounced, and people aren't afraid that you're just fat, or you have a dog, or even a baby, like, like a newbornish baby, people just think they can touch. And it's like, I mean, for a pregnant lady, her body, don't touch it.
Exactly.
Like, go away. A baby can get sick if you haven't washed your hands.
Right.
So, like, step off. And a dog will bite you.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's a mean dog, it's because
it doesn't know you.
A dog doesn't have a voice.
Right.
Or, I mean, it does, but sometimes they can't use it. And a dog doesn't have hands to be like, stop.
It can't slap you the way a pregnant woman can.
Oh, yeah. Like, a dog is going to bite you.
Yeah.
And then if a dog bites you, the dog gets put down.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't even know how we would change that. Like, do we do a class in school? Like, do we... Because PSAs don't seem to be working.
No. I don't know if you can. I feel like it's just common sense, and nobody has common sense anymore.
No.
And I don't know how you teach common sense.
I don't know either, because, like, a lot of people blame it on phones and stuff like that. And I feel like phones are their own language. Like, you use a different language when you're on social media and on, like, text messages. And I'm not just talking, like, L8 to R being later. Like, I mean, like, there's a literal language of, like, how you say certain things. And, like, you can convey emotion across a text message, but, like, the generations don't seem to understand that. My grandma does the whole, like, write something ... write something ... And I'm always like, is she pissed? Like, have I done something wrong? And I'm like, no, she doesn't get it. ... can convey, like,
so many things,
like, so many, like, negative things. It's not very often that it's like a good thing when on the internet you see ... And she does it in her emails too, and it's just like, every time I see it, I'm like, oh no. But it's like a different language, right? And I don't think it necessarily takes away common sense. I think it's just a different...
I think what it is the emotional intelligence. I don't feel like we're using that enough. I don't want to say like we're losing emotional intelligence. I just don't think we're practicing it. Or we're finding ways in which to practice because of the internet and the social media. Because that's emotional intelligence is built obviously by interpersonal relationships, face-to-face things, not screen. So being able to actually read somebody's emotions and looking at their face and understanding what emotions are being conveyed, you can't do for the screen. Like, you can't do that with emojis.
No, you can't do that with emojis. Like, FaceTime or like Skyping, you can still do that. That will still get you the same like interpersonal, because you're still seeing faces. But you can't convey, like, because the emotion in writing for messaging in social media is very different than talking. It is a different language. You are learning, like, how to convey those right emotions through messages. But then it's not the same as when you talk. Because you can say two sentences, social media sentence and face-to-face, and the way that they're said would be different to convey the same thing, social media versus in person. And I do agree. I feel like maybe we're losing a lot of the interpersonal. But I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the generation the social media generation.
Right.
Like, our generation onwards. I think a lot of the time, at least for me growing up, it was an escape from family situations and friend situations that were not positive. And the only positive interactions I would get were online. And I feel like nowadays, you can't do anything without the internet. Not just because we're, like, lazy, but because to apply for jobs, to get scholarships, to make friends, to make relationships, to find where you're going, to know what services are provided. You have to go on the internet, because a lot of times, even if you call in to, say, a library, they'll say, all of our services are online, you can check out what they are. Like, you need to be tech savvy, because you can't survive in this society right now without being tech savvy. Like, no one's going to hire you if you don't know how to use the Boolean search, as they say. But at the same time, like, family relationships are changing because society is changing.
Yeah.
Like, no one's gonna accept a guy that can't speak to his daughter until she's like 18 and like finally says I love you because he's just like, do you know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna accept that anymore. But a lot of families aren't coping with that change, I feel like. And then of course, people use the internet as a coping method for unhealthy interpersonal relationships, and then their interpersonal relationships get worse.
Yeah.
What a vicious cycle.
Actually, one of the supervisors I was looking at, they do a lot of like computer and interpersonal stuff. So like, how does the internet and how do you manage long distance relationships and all that? So that's kind of her thing. I was looking at some of her articles. I don't know, they didn't really interest me. So I'm like, I have to second guess whether or not I actually want you as my supervisor. But actually, just to go way off course, that's actually how I'm narrowing it down, because I actually had all these schools that I was looking at. And so what I was doing was going online, just looking at some other articles. One, if I couldn't find any of your articles, I'm like, that's kind of not a good sign. Maybe I shouldn't. But then if I was looking at some of them and reading their articles, I'm like, this is interesting. I could do research in this. Or if I was looking at them like, this is not what I thought at all. I really don't care, and I can't think of anything that would probably interest them research-wise. Then I'm just like, boom. And that's actually narrowing it down so much.
Yeah, so like, we need the internet, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
We need it. Like, that's, especially because, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the problem is that people are very black and white about the internet.
I think people are just very black and white in general.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, I feel like I think I'm very gray about certain things. I mean, everyone's a bit black and white about certain things, but I feel like I'm very gray about a majority of things, unless it's like, does somebody have a right to live their life, like LGBT or people of color? Like, I'm very black and white about that. Like, yes, they do. Question mark, what do you mean? But I do feel like people are very black and white, particularly about things they don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
So the internet, people are like, oh, it's terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Like, especially everyone above, like, 45. Or maybe like 50 now. Like, people anywhere, like around our parents' age, because I feel like the 70s, people born in like the 70s saw the beginning of it, and then like we were entrenched in it, and then the new generation like doesn't know anything else. So I feel like people are very like, it's terrible. Like, everyone's lazy now. And it's like, maybe you just are too lazy to learn like how it's done and actually experience the benefit of it. But maybe that's just the millennial in me just being all like, the internet's great and I love it.
Do you know what's funny though, is that like 100 years ago, people would have been saying the same thing about books.
True.
Like, I was doing a lot of research for us and libraries and all this stuff, and I was trying to find like the oldest library. So I kind of got into this wormhole about libraries and all that. And for like the beginning of like the 18th century, libraries weren't a thing. There was no such thing as a library except for personal libraries, and that was only for like the elite. And when books started coming out, it was actually seen as like a bad thing. All these youngins and their books and wasting their days reading. So the way people saw books is very similar to the way people see the internet, and then just wasting their time with all this trivial stuff. And now, I bet you anything, a parent will love if a child picked up a book.
True. And like, people used to read newspapers before they had phones. And so like, people are like, well, there's no socialness now because everyone's on their phones. It's like, well, everyone would have been reading their newspapers on the bus or like in the subway. Or,
and they would have been looking for love on the newspapers.
Oh yeah, they would have had a little like searching for, right? So like, things haven't changed that much, just the way in which their access has changed. I wonder if we're ever going to get to a point where so I used to think that generations were very, very vastly different, right? And specifically, say Generation A, Generation B, Generation C. Generation A and C were the furthest apart, and then B kind of like transitioned the two. Like they saw the difference between the two, right? But now I realize that it's not really, like, all generations pretty much want the same things. It's just whether or not generations can accept the changes to get those things. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone wants everyone to be happy, everyone to be healthy, kids to go to school, and there not to be war. Essentially, that's what generations all want. Nobody wants war, nobody wants people dying, like, we all generally want that kind of stuff. But it's whether or not you can accept how those things are made happen, right? Like, our generation's a little more accepting of, like, the internet and, like, socialism and, like, stuff like that, because we accept that that's the way to get what we want, whereas previous generations might have been a little more influenced by, well, prejudice and racism, like, well, to get those things we just need to separate ourselves, essentially. But I wonder if we're ever going to get to a point where the differences between generations and the acceptance between generations is closer. So, for instance, when we're in our 50s, will we be as startled and uncomfortable by 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds?
Probably.
You think?
There's probably gonna be some, like, warped android combination.
I mean, true, you're right, yeah. Because I wonder, like, the internet, and it might just be because I'm living in it, and, like, the whole book people might have felt the same, but I feel like the internet is so different than, like, anything we've had previously. Because, like, we would have been sending letters by snail mail. We would have been, I guess we would have been going to, like, central libraries to get all of our, like, encyclopedia information. No wiki. You gotta go to the encyclopedia in the back room covered in dust because no one looks there.
Or you had gone to the library and been like, I'm looking for this, can you help me? And they would have shown you to the stats. So.
Yeah, and, like, those people would have been the information hotspots. And now everyone can be that information hotspot. But I wonder if in, like, 20 years, is the difference going to be as vast as it was for everyone previous to us? Do you know what I mean?
I feel like the way we're going is this weird mashup of new and old. So, like, all these new technologies and all these, like, self-driving cars and all these, you know, smartphones and smart refrigerators.
Smart homes.
Exactly. But at the same time, things like cassettes, record players.
That's true.
They're all coming back. So it's like this weird mashup of, like, future and old. So I feel like for us, we'd probably be really comfortable with it because it's new, but it's also a new familiarity, you know.
So that'll be really interesting to kind of see and reflect on as we get older. Is kind of like, I mean, I kind of want to try to always be open-minded. Like, I want to try to remind myself to be open-minded because I don't really want to get to a point where in my 60s maybe I'll have grandchildren in my 60s, I don't know. And they're talking to me and I'm just like, raw, you whippersnapper, and your new age bullshit. Like, I don't want to get to that point because I know how frustrating it was for me to, like, see that. And I also feel like, and I don't want to say it's because I'm educated, I want to say perhaps it's because of how I was educated. I recognize the importance of intergenerational relationships. Because if we can bridge the gap that a lot of the time politics forces between generations, I think we'd end up having a much more coherent society. Because we'd address the issues of an older, aging generation while also understanding that progress is always going to happen. And you're never going to please everybody.
No.
But, like, at the end of the day, we have a lot of seniors who can't afford healthcare, who can't afford their medications, who are isolated in their homes and essentially end up, like...
Or abused in the
system, who end up basically committing a type of suicide, like a type of social suicide. And, like, that's important. Like, we need those knowledges because, like, common sense is passed on a lot of time as well and learned from our elders. But politics is forcing a really huge gap. Whether it's because younger generations have to work so hard because of a failing economy, or because the, like, rhetoric is that, oh, well, grandparents are just racist and, like, like whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't talk to your grandparents like they're just racist. Like, you know what I mean? Just because they are doesn't mean that the knowledge they have isn't valid. Because you need to understand, why did they think like that? Why was racism or prejudice allowed to infest so heavily in an entire generation? Well, it's likely because no one was talking to each other. It's because they didn't understand what was happening. So I really want to try to stay open-minded and remember that, like, you need to understand what every generation is doing and thinking. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the situation where we are now, where like...
Well, it's that old saying, those who do not know their history are bound to repeat it.
Yeah. Because we are. What's happening right now? Literally, it's like we're about to go back into the 20s. In 2020, it looks like we're going back to the 1920s. With women's rights and voting rights and stuff, the way they're going.
And as much as I love their fashion, I am not about that.
No, I don't need a husband who's going to beat me.
No.
Just because I decided that I wanted to wear pants. But it's really interesting, kind of like history is cyclical. Like, at one point we're going to not forget, but be so distant from a certain kind of history that we don't recognize it for what it is. And I feel like that's the nature of things. Like, we're so far away from when books came in that we forget that books were once scary. And one day we might be so far away from the internet, like the advent of the internet, that we forget that that was scary. Kind of thing. Like, I don't know if you remember, but I remember, like, the whole, like, the world's gonna end when 2000 happens because we don't know what's gonna happen when the clocks or the computers, like, switch over to 2000. Right? Like, that was scary for people. People genuinely thought the world would be over. At the advent
bunkers,
of the their bunkers.
Well, now they think it's zombies, so...
I don't know how much I believe in that. Like, I know there are diseases that, like, take over ants. Like, there's a type of fungus, essentially, that will take over the brain of an ant and, like, control it. And if it takes over an entire colony, essentially it'll force them to all commit suicide.
Oh my.
And it makes them, like, eat each other and stuff like that. And, like, it takes over the mind of the ant and just, like, drives the whole colony insane. So they exist, but they've never existed to the point where they would ever control a human, because like, our brains are far more complicated and we would die long before we, like, it would take over. Do you know what I mean? Like, our brains would just like but like, I don't know that zombies is going to be what takes us out.
No, we're far more likely to take each other out than
especially with the great orange orangutan in power and his little friend Dougie. Like, I'm worried. I'm worried. Like, I don't know. I do think that environmental disaster brought on by humans is more likely what's going to take us out. But I mean, that's what I'm educated in, so of course that's what I think it's going to be. Like, it'd be so easy to fix, but...
What scares me is, like, when we're in our 60s or 70s or 80s, is that we're going to be living in this exact same time, because from what happened from now until then has completely gone back, so that we have to come back to this spot. If that made any sense.
I know you're saying that, like, socially, politically, we've almost gone back.
Yes, we regressed so much that by the time we're in the future, we've actually just stayed in the same spot.
And it's like, so they say that when the Library of Alexandria burned down, we went back 200 years in knowledge, and, like, imagine how far we'd be from that. It feels a bit like that. It feels a bit like somehow we've lost all this, like, progressive knowledge about, like, rights, consent, humans, like, just from, like, basically from one person getting in power causing a tidal wave for other people of similar belief systems to feel like they can get in. And they did. And now all of a sudden we have, like, 4 superpowers of the world, all with very, very, basically opposing, like, belief systems.
I feel like it's going to be like the modern Victorian era.
Oh, no.
It's kind of like the technology of our times, but with the views and ideology of that.
I swear, if someone says that I'm not allowed to wear pants anymore, we're gonna have a problem.
Did you know? Women weren't allowed to wear underwear because they thought that it was too masculine.
Underwear? So wait, were they all commando under their dresses?
Well, they had like a slip.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah. So no, they weren't wearing like underwear the way like, we wear underwear. Yeah.
With like pantaloons, right? Just like a long.
Yeah, there was like a huge fight for pantaloons because it was too masculine and women were becoming too much like men if they wore some underwear. And now I think lots of women wish they didn't have to wear underwear.
It's the bras for me.
Yeah.
Because I like the way bras make the girls look. And it makes me feel really
And
nice.
sometimes it's a necessity, but
like if I'm running, there's no way I'm running without a bra. Like I would knock myself out.
Yeah.
Like it would be painful. But like there are a lot of times where I'm like, I don't want to wear one, but then I feel like the social like pressure of like you gotta wear a bra. And it's crazy. Like that was ingrained in me when no one ever said the words, no one will like you if you didn't wear a bra. Like no one ever said that to me, but the feeling of it definitely translated to the way people talk or the way people look or like whatever.
Yeah, that was actually ingrained in me too. From like, I guess ever since I had boobs, it was just kind of like ingrained. Like if you have boobs, you have to wear a bra.
Yeah, like
for like
bra
everything.
Anything,
Yeah, and my mom, probably because she was like in the 60s, 50s. But also because she was actually really flat for most of her life. She never wore a bra. She was like an A cup until she was 30. So
and then she suddenly got boobs?
Well, then she hit menopause and then everything just went...
Right.
Or as she says, she had kids and then everything went down.
I mean, your hormones do change massively, so that makes sense.
So she never really wore a bra. Like she never really had to. It wasn't a concern. But for some reason, I always did, even though like I was probably her size for most of her life and I was like in her preteen. Yeah. But I always had to wear a bra. And so even shirts that already had built-in bras, I was already wearing a bra. She's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I can't.
Interesting,
Bras, I must wear them. And now it's just like, no, I don't want to wear a bra. If I can go without, I will.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing lately. Is just like, and like I don't know. There's something. So there's been a lot of like internal talk with myself lately about a lot of the things that I've kind of. I'm losing all my English. That I've like taken into myself.
Internalized.
That's the word. Thank you. I knew. I was like, Nora will know it. A lot of stuff I've internalized and trying to like work out what is stuff that I don't mind, because there's some stuff that you internalize like manners. Like that doesn't matter. Like no one wants to see you eat with your mouth full and like that makes sense, right? And like being self-conscious about that, I think that's fine. But like stuff like you're worth nothing if you look a certain way, dress a certain way, whatever, those are not okay. Yeah. And so there's been a lot of internalization lately because I've started following people on social media who look more like me, who are plus size or who dress more like me or think more like me or just that kind of thing, because there's been a big advent, I think, in social media lately where these people are actually making space for themselves where before they would have felt like they couldn't, right? And so it's been very interesting to think about it because on the topic of bras, plus size women in a lot of ways have trouble not wearing bras because like their boobs are a little bigger. It's a little like you get a lot of back pain from not wearing it. But at the same time are forced from a much younger age to wear bras and to like force themselves into certain types of bras because it's like, well, for a plus size girl to look good, she has to put extra effort in. Because if, for instance, if a plus size girl and a non plus size girl, like a standard size, wore the same outfit, let's say sweatpants and an oversized hoodie with like their hair done up maybe, the straight size girl will be conventionally considered pretty, but the plus size girl will be considered lazy. And so it's like, it's been very interesting to like see that dynamic even in myself, where it's like I saw a girl the other day, she was wearing like a crop top, a pair of like Roots sweatpants, and had just like her hair up in a bandana, and I was like, she looks so cute. Like, she looked so cute.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I would look so gross
Oh.
in that. And it's like, that's such an interesting, like, thing to think about. And so lately I've been trying to just not wear a bra. And just, like, seeing how I feel about it. Some days I'm like, ow, my back.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I should have worn something. Like, whether it's a bralette or just something, like, a little bit of support. And sometimes I'm like, I don't think anyone noticed. I don't think anyone cares. It's very interesting. Like, that's an interesting thing that we tell people with boobs. That, like, they have to wear a bra, or that, like, there's something negative about having boobs. Because, like, even guys, like, if they, for instance, have large pecs, and it could be because of their weight distribution, because of they work out or whatever.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's man boobs, and it's like super negative. And I think that's really interesting. And I mean, it probably comes from the fact that women, for a long time, were considered like the lesser sex.
Okay, yeah.
But it's still very like how you can almost guarantee, regardless of your culture, regardless of where you grew up, and even regardless of what age you're in, like, that is somewhere in someone's dichotomy. And, like, unlearning those things is very interesting. Because, like, I catch myself all the time thinking things, and I'm like, where did that even come from?
Yeah.
Like, where would I have learned that? Because I can't think of, like, my friends, certainly. Like, maybe my family, but I feel like in general I'm very, like, clued into the things that they would have ingrained in me that I don't care about.
Yeah.
That's, like, some things I sit there and I'm like, where did that come from? Like, who taught me that?
Who did taught me that? That is a good question.
Because, like, obviously if your mom wasn't wearing bras, she wouldn't have.
Yeah. I mean, not for me anyway, because I was smaller. I mean, for her other daughter, who was much bigger, probably. Yeah.
It's like, who teaches us these things?
Yeah.
Like, obviously school, social media now, and, like, our friends, but, like...
And it's funny because it's like we've all internalized that we need to wear a bra, and that there's shame in wearing a bra.
Yeah.
You get called out if, like, you're showing your bra strap, which, by the way, it is.
Yeah, well, my whole bra's on show right now.
That's all right. But it's like, so you get shamed if you're not wearing one, then you get shamed if you are wearing one.
And you can see it.
And you can see it. And it's just like, so, which is one of those things where it's a woman's like, you can't step right and you can't step left.
No.
You must stand still.
Well, I guess that also is what ingrains in girls the idea that just existing as a woman is somehow shameful. Which is like, that's a whole 50% of the population.
Yeah.
Who for some reason it's internalized that they are shameful for existing.
Yeah. For merely just being.
Yeah.
Which is stupid, because if it wasn't for us, no one would be. So.
Literally. And women with bone marrow can actually produce children.
Yeah.
Through two women.
So.
And it would only produce women.
Yeah.
So, like, it's very interesting. And I wonder if it's perhaps because somebody realized it. Like, somebody realized that women, because they control the bloodline, essentially, like, without, like, if you look at population studies of, like, animals, let's say, if there are more men than women in a ratio, the population is guaranteed to go extinct. But if there's more women than men, or like males to females, they're guaranteed to succeed, because if you run out of males, that's okay, as long as there's enough females to keep the population going. I wonder if someone in human history realized that and was like, if we don't do something, like, figured that they felt inferior, obviously.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's where it came from.
Probably.
Rather than, like, a weakness in the... Like,
it's interesting because everybody always relates back to, like, nature and natural and things. Like, the biggest argument is like, well, you can't do that because it's not natural. But if you look at humans in comparison to all the other species, everything about us is unnatural.
Yeah.
And the way they organize their communities and the way in which they mate and everything that we do is completely backwards from what nature actually does.
And just, like, not even that, but so people are like, well, being gay is unnatural and stuff like that. It's almost been documented in every other mammal species on the planet that we've studied, has some version of non-hetero activity. Whether it's female birds pairing up and one of them basically pretending to mate with a male, and then the two flying off together to raise the baby. Like literally that happens. Or like there'll be female birds who pose as male birds to protect a colony of females. Not even just birds, but many other mammal species. Yeah. Or like lion prides are matriarchal, elephant herds are matriarchal. Like it's like humans are the only ones who have this idea that there's something wrong with this difference.
Yeah. In every species, the females tend to be blander looking because it's the male's job to attract. Yeah. But we're the ones who have to buy like $50 foundation and just like that gets confiscated at the airport.
Oh my god.
So that's fun.
Yeah, and like in nature, the female are usually blander. One, because the male has to do all the work. Yeah. But also because the female is protecting the babies. It needs to blend in with whatever habitat the babies are going to be in, or the community is going to be in. But it's like if a woman does that, there's also something shameful in that in the human community. If she just wants to like, it's humans are so like, it's like we think too much.
We do. We think too much and not enough.
Yeah.
We think too much about the wrong things and don't think enough about the right things. Yeah. But speaking of homosexual animals, did you know that there is a male couple penguins in Germany?
Yeah!
You heard about that?
Egg, right? Yeah. And they finally got an egg because they were waiting for, like they weren't going to take an egg from another pair, but I think they were either waiting for twin eggs to be laid or for someone to reject an egg. And then as soon as they rejected an egg, because the two males were doing the exact same mating sequence as the male-female pairs, they took the egg and they gave it to the males and they raised it. And like,
that was so cute.
And like every animal species can have situations where either the parents are killed, the parents reject the offspring for some reason, or one of them just goes off and mates and then runs off with a girl again. And there's always going to be a need for extra sets of parents who aren't producing their own offspring. Yeah. Like there's always going to be a need for that. Look at all the parents, the like gay parents who want to adopt children. Yeah. But then governments are like, oh.
Yeah, no. 2 men cannot raise
a girl. What are you talking about? They don't know what that is. It's like, okay, so no single father should raise a girl then? No. And no single mother should raise a boy? Like
so Full House actually should never have happened, if you think about it, because Full House, the father was single, and he was raising the kids with, like, his brother and some random guy. And so it was, like, 3 guys raising, 5 girls?
Yeah. Oh, that's unnatural.
Yeah. I mean, if Full House can do it, I think,
the layman's person can do it. Under normal circumstances.
But I heard it was so cute because I heard they were so desperate for one. They were actually trying to they were trying to nurse fishes and rocks.
Oh no!
They were sitting on them trying to get them to hatch. They were so desperate for an egg.
That's so sad. I'm so glad the zoo gave them an egg. They deserve it.
They do.
They do. They've been married long enough. They should have an egg. I guess we could end it with a question of, if you were a penguin. I'm joking, that. Or maybe the question should be, what is something that you think we should think about more, and what is something you think we should think about less as a human species?
I like that. That is a good question.
Yeah. Cool. That us?
That's us.
Alright, I guess
until we figure out a better ending.
I guess that's it. And then I guess in about a month's time,
we will do this again. Cool. And hopefully we will end up at the right place.
Oh my god, yeah. We'll tell the story of how this first episode happened and how Emma ended up in a very different place.
To be fair, on Emma's behalf, it's the city of Mississauga's stupid fault for naming buildings and roads the same thing and having them actually on different ends of the city.
Yeah. But that'll be a story for next time.
Yeah.